Get started. It's 11:03. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, I am Michelle Benjamin from AUDIENCEX. We are here to talk about holiday campaign strategies. It's almost October, and I don't know if you've already planned out your Q4 campaigns completely, but if not, we're here to help you talk through some strategies for those. Our presenter today is Joe Horine, our Senior Director of Strategy, and with that, well, actually, before I pass over you, I'll just reiterate, we are recording this. I will be sending a recording out to everyone. If you would like a copy of the slides or the holiday campaign strategy guide, which this is accompanied by this, we will be sharing that also. So no worries if you miss anything. And with that, I will pass it off to Joe.
It's funny seeing this picture, pre-quarantine haircut for me. Feels like a lifetime ago. So before we jump into kind of the presentation today, change, if this may not be surprising, this is probably the most understated thing I'll say today. There's been a lot of change in 2020. You can't go outside. Shopping's going to be different. The holidays are going to be very bizarre this year. Two people yelled at each other during what was supposed to be a presidential debate last night. It's a weird time. Basically saying you can't just repeat what you were going to do last year. And if that was your plan, fear not, because we're going to be talking you through how you could potentially shift that to be more effective as we head into Q4. So there are a number of things you should hopefully understand about your business, your client's business already, completely outside of maybe traditional marketing in the sense of where are we spending our budgets, what's our strategy, what does our target audience look like, et cetera, et cetera. Things like quarter over quarter, year over year, year to date over year to date. What do sales trends look like? What does our website traffic look like? Are we running any special Q4 promos that might influence creative messaging? All of those things will directly influence your marketing, but not what we're going to cover today. Partners like AX may be able to help you with that depending on where you're at in your planning cycle, but our focus today is going to be more on marketing things. So first and foremost, prepare your budget. How much budget do you have to spend? How might that impact flighting? There's a ton of events in Q4, sales events, marketing events, whatever you want to call them. I'll go through that full list later, but from what we've seen historically, even outside of 2020, an always on budget tends to be much more effective at building awareness, driving people to your site, staying consistently in front of them, as opposed to say just having up a couple days before Black Friday, if that's a big event for you. So understanding your budget, how might that impact flighting? If things are going well, if you just are crushing your sales goals, will you have the opportunity to scale? Are you planning on a monthly level throughout Q4? Are you trying to use up the last of your annual budget in the last 3 months of the year if you're on a traditional calendar? My favorite question when I'm working with clients is, where is this budget coming from? You may be super excited about driving people to the site, but say your partners in finance or your CFO just wants to understand that bottom line. How much is it costing you to acquire new customers? All of those questions fit into this larger bucket of preparing your budget. And obviously it's tough to plan for any marketing campaign without starting here. So that's where we thought we'd start. Second, set your goals. What are you trying to achieve today, next week, this month, Q4, in the year? Will those change as things go on? My favorite example of this, if you're launching a new site, especially if it's an e-commerce site, coming out of the gate and expecting to be able to immediately optimize towards any type of conversion activity is incredibly optimistic. You are going to need to see an incredibly high volume of website traffic, people starting your funnel, maybe initiating a conversion and ultimately completing that conversion before a lot of the platforms out there are going to have enough observations to effectively find the pockets of consumers that look like converters, drive more conversions, and ultimately decrease that CPA or cost per acquisition. Understanding where you're at in terms of your overall marketing and having that attached, associated, and connected with your goals is incredibly important. And I think one of the things that often goes overlooked. The other thing is, how focused are your objectives? What I mean by that, if you're saying, hey, we really need to drive an awareness campaign, and how we're going to optimize or how we're going to measure success is the number of conversions, those are not the same thing. Awareness and conversions are probably opposite ends of the spectrum for things that you can be looking at or things that you can be measuring as far as your goals go for a marketing campaign. And then my final one, and this one tends to come with maybe a little bit of tough love, but are your goals realistic? If you need to say drive 1,000 converters in Q4, and on an average month, you're seeing, 5 to 10 new customers, being able to increase your business at that scale and that magnitude is going to be incredibly difficult. Short of a miracle, you may not hit that 1,000-person goal or 1,000 conversion goal, whatever you're looking at. So understanding how realistic are your goals, also something you need to keep in mind. How do you do that, you might be asking? One of the best ways is just reviewing past campaign performance. What worked well previously for you? What didn't work so well? Do you know why those two examples, one that worked well, one that didn't work well, do you know why that was the case? Was it a messaging problem? Was it just a time of the year problem when maybe you're in a lull and no one was buying your product? If you don't understand what's worked well and what's not worked well, maybe your approach to your Q4 and the holiday season should be to learn what helps me drive better performance. And there's a number of ways you can do that. The most simple of which is probably an A/B test. You're looking at 2 audience groups. You're keeping everything the same except for one variant. Maybe it's the imagery you're using. Maybe it's the call to action. But at least from that campaign, regardless of the CTR, the CPA, the website traffic, you can walk away with a clear learning of whatever test variant works better than another one. If you don't know those things, you're in an interesting spot. But you've got nowhere to go but up as far as test learning and better understanding what does and does not drive performance for you. The only other thing to keep in mind, if you have run a campaign like that and you do have strong learnings, which of those things do you think are going to translate into this COVID-19 world that we're in? We're working with a client who traditionally has gone door-to-door offline to make sales. Obviously, not really an option for them right now. So as we go into 2020 and 2021, a digital plan is completely outside the norm for them. And all of their user base and customer knowledge is going to be starting from zero. So they're in an interesting spot. Doesn't mean that we can't figure out how to drive success for them in Q4. This one might seem like a no-brainer, but identify your target audience. I'm going to start by saying it is okay if you do not know your target audience, but being able to acknowledge that is an effective first step in figuring out who is the right people for your product and offering. The other big thing to consider is, has your base changed as people are moving inside, shopping online more, using things like, purchase online, pick up in store, pick up curbside? Has that shifted the dynamic of your target audience? And are you accurately reflecting that in your targeting strategy for your holiday campaigns? The biggest thing I'll say for this, I'm a fan of starting really broad with targeting, especially in something like programmatic, and then getting more finely tuned based on observations you're seeing in a real live environment. Just because last year you saw a specific age bracket or a specific geo that way over-indexed or overperformed others, I can almost guarantee that it's not going to be exactly the same this year. That doesn't mean you abandon it, but that also doesn't mean that you put all your eggs into that basket. So some level of balance is really, really important. And then the last thing to keep in mind is understanding who you're going after. Is it a completely new customer who has no idea that you exist and you're trying to break in? Are you trying to dethrone maybe the current market leader? Is this a repeat customer that you want to bring back or re-engage? Or is this just a customer who you want to have just make another purchase for the holiday season? I consider all of those different questions and approaches something that would fall inside of identifying your target audience. This is another one along the same lines of consider all channels. I don't know what you did last year for a holiday campaign, but obviously the dynamic is shifting pretty considerably, especially this year. Now, depending on what source you're using, we've had a lot of conversations with vendors and providers in the last couple months leading into Q4. Newspaper is a great example of something where spend is dramatically down. 36% year over year, or I'm sorry, year to date over year to date, newspaper spend is really low. More surprisingly, mobile and video spend also down as we head into Q4. Now, there's a couple ways to take that. First is, hey, maybe people are just spending less because there's so much uncertainty in the market. Maybe. What I think is more realistic is they've been saving those budgets and are just going to flood the market in Q4. And we'll talk about a couple different approaches to hopefully address something like that, assuming my prediction holds true, a little bit later in today's presentation. The other thing I'll call out here is more channels does not always mean better performance, especially if it comes at the cost of spreading yourself too thin with how many channels you're running. So if you've got a 25K, say monthly budget for Q4, and you want to explore adding in more than 5 channels, that really stretches your budget for each of those months. Now you could be optimizing, making allocations, moving from low performing to high performing channels within that. But you're really giving each of the platforms a limited budget to see what's working, test different audience segments, test different tactical strategies when you're looking at that many channels. So how do you get around that? Just make sure the channels you're using align with, again, your goals and objectives and what you're seeing from a business performance stance. Finally, gather your assets. It's going to be tough to go out there and figure out what you want to do if you don't know what assets are workable, ready, on brand even, or aligned with, say, a promo you're running in Q4. So you may have a really nice video spot that you've used previously, but in what is expected to be a more high traffic, like going to be much harder to get people's attention, maybe that minute video spot is not the right asset to use here. So understanding what you do have available and then figuring out what's going to be useful and effective in Q4 and what you actually want to use with different partners or for campaigns feels like a no-brainer, but absolutely wanted to call it out in this first section. So before we get into some of the, I'll say more meat and potatoes as far as tips for success in 2020, we did want to take a quick second to just look at what did we see from 2019? How much volume, if anything, can we expect? This is the section of the presentation with a built-in water break, because I'm going to give you a quick second to scan this page, and then I'll call out just a few of the highlights. So all of the numbers you're seeing here are billion with a B, which was surprising. Just again, it's always a nice reminder of how much people are shopping from that Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday, or from, say, mid-November through the end of December. Thanksgiving, we saw $4.2 billion in sales. That's just in the US. Black Friday, $7.4 billion in the US, making it the second most profitable day of the season. Topped by Cyber Monday, $9.4 billion. Beyond that, 2.8 of that came between 7 and 11 p.m. So for all the people who are potentially exploring really aggressive day flighting for time of day when you think people maybe aren't shopping online, that 7 to 11 p.m. is later than I think most people are considering. And then just the total for that 5-day Cyber Week, which is Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday, $28.5 billion in the US. Obviously, these numbers get dramatically more impressive as you think about the bleed into Canada or Mexico or just other countries who are also running similar events. We do have kind of a list of the key events to keep in mind and the associated dates for just the US in 2020. I think that's coming in a few slides. But so let's get to what most people have probably tuned in for this presentation. What should we be looking to do to run successful campaigns in this 2020 holiday season? This may shock you, but the internet is super powerful, and you've got to embrace digital. A couple different studies, but the lowest number that I was able to find, 71% of US adults plan on doing more than half of their holiday shopping online. That's crazy, 71% of people. If you're not marketing where these folks are actively shopping and spending their time, you're leaving dollars, sales, whatever you're looking at, engagement, you're leaving it on the table. The other piece that digital offers, let's just compare two like offerings. Linear television, which a lot of people have done for a very long time, and something like CTV or OTT. The additional benefits from tracking alone to be able to understand what is working, what is not working, how impactful was this campaign, that comes with digital is just so much more valuable than anything you're going to get from a linear TV buy. If you haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix at this point, it's a little bit more social focused, but I think a lot of the people thought Facebook's value was in their data, and it is, but it's also just the ability to influence people where they're spending their time. And digital is hands down the best way to do that. I wish I could quantify how much better it is than offline at this point. I can't. Very few people can, if anyone, but it is. And it's just because of how much more data you have, how much more control, how much more insights, how much more flexibility. The list goes on and on and on for why you should be embracing digital. Launching early. This one, again, is going to be dictated a little bit by your budget. Numbers are going to vary by vertical, but what we've seen historically is that holiday emails and communications sent earlier in the season increase conversions up to 2x. Now, obviously, some verticals is going to be much higher, some verticals are going to be lower, but as a general rule of thumb, the earlier you get your messaging started, and that doesn't mean you're sending a bombardment of messaging throughout the entire holiday season, but as long as you've got a planned strategy that is strong and you're starting earlier, you should see a significant increase in conversion rates. We had some of these numbers listed previously, but if you are curious on where people are shopping, early December, that November timeframe leading up through the holiday season, as the chart on the right here shows, is incredibly impactful. Even outside of just figuring out how to get people to buy more or engage with you more, starting earlier allows you to build better retargeting pools. You're going to understand what consumers are interacting with your website, who's coming to your page more often, getting in front of them a little bit more often. This is where something like the marketing rule of 7, which suggests that it takes at least 7 impressions before a consumer really starts to remember your brand and incorporates them into their consideration set. Now, I've been a part of a number of analyses historically that basically say that brand awareness does not directly lead to conversions. So if you see a 10% lift in your brand awareness, you may not see a 10% lift in conversions. But it is very difficult for someone to buy a product from you if they don't know you exist and have no idea what your offering is. So should you focus 100% of your budget on driving brand awareness? No. But if you completely ignore brand awareness, you're going to see lower performance at the bottom of your funnel. One way to help get around that is by starting earlier in the season, keeping that always on approach, staying in front of consumers, and then potentially heavying up when there are peak opportunities like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Thanksgiving, etc. If you remember nothing today, you can take BOPUC back with you, which is buy online, pick up curbside. Obviously, this was something that a lot of companies struggled with or looked to make that adjustment early. But this is maybe the biggest way that I'm shopping right now, especially for things like groceries. If I can avoid going into a heavy populated area, make all these decisions online, have it brought out to my car, even if there's an additional fee, I'm absolutely paying that 10 out of 10 times at this point. And I absolutely expect that to continue for at least some significant portion of Americans during the holiday season. The graph on the right, let's look at the third and fourth bars there. Click and collect, shopping in store. We see that 18% of people are less interested in click and collect, 23% about shopping in store. That opportunity is really, really easy to capitalize on and gives you the opportunity to reach out to consumers just as a reminder. Hey, you've shopped with us before. Hey, we saw that you hit the website. Just as an FYI, we have this lovely option, buy online, pick up curbside. This goes into a number of different things that we've talked about already, but encouraging early gift buying can be a really strong strategy for what you're doing in 2020, mostly because there's a lot of really stressful things going on in the world and the United States. Getting the holiday shopping stuff checked off early might be an easy way to help alleviate that stress for consumers. Also gives you that opportunity to communicate with them about, hey, we've got maybe a promo going on. Hey, don't forget the shipping deadlines are going to be this. If you're using, say, the Postal Service to ship some of your products, you're going to need to build in more buffer than you think. As Michelle and I were talking about, with Amazon, you don't have to worry about that, but how much you're going to want to support Amazon, I'll leave that up to individual consumers. I don't have the answer for that one. But encouraging early gift buying can be a great way to get in front of consumers, really not depend your whole holiday season on, say, December purchases, which helps alleviate maybe the pressure on your marketing budget, or at least how you're measuring success. And then also gives you that one extra chance to get in front of consumers in a way that doesn't feel intrusive or overwhelming. You're genuinely trying to help them alleviate some of the pressure and stress of the holiday season. Along the same lines, this is an odd time where over-communicating is probably and likely going to be more accepted. And I don't mean the emails we all got for in these trying times, blah, 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 we're in this together. All of that really repetitive, I thought was very low value communications from these companies on their stance on a number of things, whether it was COVID and how it's impacting their business, even some of the stances on the political injustice that we're seeing in the United States just felt hollow. So that's not what I'm talking about here. Specifically for over communicating with your consumers in this sense, is things relevant to your shopping process. If you've got an offline location, are your store hours different? Are they the same? Are you doing something special, like the first 2 hours of the day are for senior citizens? Those types of things are super useful to consumers, even outside of their ability to just Google your store hours or understand who can shop when. Even little things like, hey, we're actually shutting down at 6 instead of 8 p.m. on weekends so that people can go home with their families. Little things like that are important to let consumers who are potentially going to be interacting with your brand know, regardless of how many times that you've already sent them a marketing message. The other big one is just the specials you're running. Is there a Q4 promo? Are you doing a buy one, get reduced? Companies like Bombas have built, Tom Shoes being maybe the better example, have built a whole business model over, hey, for everything that you buy from us, we're going to donate one to insert community or cause or whatever that may look like. If you have something like that, people appreciate that, gives them that little extra peace of mind when they are deciding who to go between you, a competitor, maybe even if it's, I don't really think I need this, it's more of a want, but hey, it's going to a good cause. So all of those things you could potentially over communicate are going to be useful to consumers. And then maybe the third bucket, anything to make their lives easier. So if that is, hey, our shipping time's different. If you're shipping this or sending this to a loved one, don't forget that. If you have an offline location, things like, hey, we see peak shopping time in terms of people is XYZ time. If you're looking for the opposite of that, if you want to come when it's dead, here's when those times are. Interesting little nuggets or pieces of information that'll be useful for consumers as they're shopping is a great example of where you can over communicate and do it in a way that feels genuine and helpful. So you're not just bombarding people and seeing an increase in the amount of unsubscribes, say on your email list. This is one that we talk about a lot with clients. And it doesn't need to be December, but this is a holiday guide. But don't just focus on the last month of the year. You're really setting yourself up to put a lot of pressure on your conversion funnel for just 1 month, when if you spread that out over, say, all 3 months, you're just setting yourselves up to be really, really more successful. I won't guarantee really, really successful. We also saw 6 of the 12 major sales events, which I think is on the next slide, aren't in December. Things like Black Friday, everything associated with Thanksgiving, they lead right into December. It's the end of November. But if you're starting your marketing messages, say a week before that push at the end of November, again, you're going to be missing out on a lot of people doing that early research. You're not going to have as good enough chance to build a lookalike or retargeting pool. Just the amount of observations you're going to be getting to your website is going to be much, much lower if you do end up starting late November or early December. So here's another example. I don't need to, actually, just for everyone who may be listening, instead of closely paying attention to what is a very engaging webinar, there's a number of dates that are going to be important for 2020. In November, that is Thanksgiving on the 26th, Black Friday on the 27th, Small Business Saturday on the 28th, my personal favorite, Sofa Sunday on the 29th, and Cyber Monday on the 30th. Those are the November dates. Moving in December, Giving Tuesday is on the 1st, Free Shipping Day is on the 12th, Green Monday is the 14th, Hanukkah is on the 10th through the 18th this year, Super Saturdays on the 19th, Christmas Eve and Christmas on the 4th and 5th, and New Year's is on the 1st, per usual. So now you may be thinking, hey, I'm not doing anything for Black Friday or Cyber Business Saturday or Sofa Sunday. Cyber Monday is kind of a miss for us. Why do I care about these dates? The one thing we know about each of these dates is that people tend to be online more, even if it's just a curiosity. Let me see what Cyber Monday deals are running. I may not purchase anything. Actually, I very rarely purchase stuff on Cyber Monday, but I am always in a much more shopping positive mindset during some of these dates than I am regular days of the week or year or month. Even if you're not running something on Green Monday or Free Shipping Tuesday or Giving Tuesday, any of these dates, being present and online where your consumer base is will pay dividends for you in whatever you're trying to do in the holiday season. So these dates are important not only if you're running a special promo, anything like that, that's the obvious one, but consumers and more people are going to be online shopping around these dates. So maybe you heavy up a little bit. Maybe you change your messaging. Maybe you look to test different targeting strategies around these different dates, but they're super important. And I think it's something that's often overlooked or just lumped together that is a missed opportunity for marketers during the holiday season. And then the last one in this section, drop those pixels. Basically what we mean by this, just because you're not, say, going live with a marketing campaign, let's say you're still getting your plan together, you're going to launch late October because you've believed 80% of what I've shared today. You can get pixels set up now, right now. Get them on your site. Start measuring how many people are hitting the different stages of your funnel. Start seeing what potential audience insights you can glean from the folks who are staying engaged with your different media efforts. There is no true downside, unless you don't believe in technology, of placing pixels as early as possible. And if you don't believe in technology, if you think placing pixels does things like slow down your website, increases the chance that someone can hack in, please email me, because that's just not how pixels are working at this point. We've got a couple different solutions at AUDIENCEX that help address those. We've had a number of emails that we just can pull from at this point and share with the language with you. There really is no downside to placing pixels, and is one of my favorite themes in marketing. Data is king. Pixels are the key for, say, programmatic advertising. And without them, your campaigns are just going to suffer in terms of your potential. The other piece, pixels, again, are what can be used to make lookalike and retargeting pools. Even if you're not running marketing, those pixels can be learning. What do consumers who convert look like? How many times should we be retargeting someone before it's overkill or before it loses its effectiveness? And then maybe the last reason, placing pixels early does allow you to jumpstart campaigns with those learnings whenever you do go live. We have a number of clients who maybe, say, have a really low level of organic website traffic or conversion activity. One of the things that we'll look to do is place pixels, track conversion activity over, say, a couple months, use those combined learnings over 3 months to inform what we do as soon as we do go live with media. As a rule of thumb, we're generally looking for about 200 conversions in a 2-week period, or 400 conversions on an average month, before we're really, really confident that the AI and machine learning in these platforms has enough meat on the bone to run a successful campaign. I'm not saying that things below that level of volume are impossible or not going to work. I am saying that the AI in these platforms, machine learning, depending on which platforms you're on, will need to do more test and learn before they're confident in what they should be doing. That test and learn requires budget, effort, attention, all of which is not going to be helping you drive whatever you're looking to drive. Website visits, white paper downloads, e-commerce purchases, whatever it is. The value in that pixel data cannot be understated, which is why I'm spending so much time on this slide. Down to our final section. If you do have questions, by the way, please do not hesitate to throw those in the chat. I'll try to either address them as they come up, depending on what slide I'm on or how much I'm in the groove. If not, we can look at any questions at the very end. Try CTV. This is one that I've been talking about a lot. CTV, obviously, again, not going to be a surprise here. More people are at home streaming more content. It is an absurd amount of content that the average American is streaming a day, depending on your target, depending on your offering, even depending on the story you're trying to tell. It is next to impossible to find a better channel and outlet to do that when comparing it to CTV. It's just such an engaging method for both consumers and advertisers to utilize. Consumers, it's shorter than the average linear TV commercial break. This isn't an atmosphere where commercial starts, I'm going to the restroom, I'm gonna refill my drink, I'm making a snack. These are short snippets. I think depending on your platform, it's a minute, maybe up to 3 minutes if you're really in the premium provider like Hulu, but you're on the free plan. And it's just something that you're gonna watch Hulu's my favorite example. You're going to see that same ad or same set of ads over and over and over again during a basic binge session. And, I'll be darned if it's not hard to forget whatever that brand is just because of how many times you've seen the same silly gimmick that they're running. CTV, if you're not running it, if you're an old school linear TV person, I'd be happy to talk through more of the benefits of why CTV is such a powerful channel and why for this section, we started with CTV. Increase CPM bids. As I mentioned before, I highly anticipate we see a flood of increased spend in Q4 that either is supporting sales efforts around all of those dates that I mentioned, or just marketers who have paused their budgets during the uncertainty we saw in Q1 and Q2 and are trying to make up for lost ground by increasing spend in Q4. Well, Joe, I don't have any more budget to be spending. What the heck can I be doing? You can increase your CPM bids. Now, most, especially programmatic, if you're in a second place auction, even if you're in a first place auction, depending on your buying methodology, increasing your bids doesn't necessarily guarantee that your pricing is going to go up, but it does open you up to win more high quality inventory on a consistent basis that's relevant to your target audience and whatever you're trying to do. If you have enough pixel data, if you have enough conversion activity, understanding the optimal bid point is something that these platforms are built to do. So giving it more wiggle room or a larger margin for error, if that's maybe a term that sits better with you, to go after competitive inventory when it sees those opportunities can only be done by increasing your CPM bids. This is why at AUDIENCEX, we really enjoy and like using that DCPM buying model, dynamic CPM, because when there are chances when we can really, what the system sees as a slam dunk, we can go after and spend a little bit more than that. We can balance that with prospecting, third party, some of the things that we can spend a little bit less on. Increasing your CPM bids for what is going to be highly competitive Q4 cannot, again, be something that's overstated and something that I highly recommend you play around with just as far as maybe additional levers to pull for optimization. Try PMPs or private marketplaces. So depending on where you're buying, what inventory you're using, how sophisticated you are, one way to get a little bit closer to, say, a direct buy that was effective maybe 10, 15 years ago in a digital environment, get a little bit more high quality inventory, sit a little bit higher in that inventory waterfall, is through PMPs. Almost all the DSPs that we're currently using at AUDIENCEX have a number of evergreen PMPs. There's also a chance to reach out to some of these partners direct and get something set up. PMPs are kind of that perfect balance between, hey, I don't have the, say, 50, 60K to commit to a direct buy. I'm already using programmatic, but I want something a little bit more premium. I want something that's a little bit more not guaranteed, but at least consistent. I know what to expect. That's where PMPs fit in perfectly. Now, depending on your budget, depending on your targeting, depending on what inventory you're generally used to going after, I don't think PMPs work or are necessary for every campaign. But again, this is just one more lever that if you're not currently using in your toolkit, absolutely recommend including, even if it's just for a small test budget. Social ads are a must. This may not surprise you. People use social media like a lot, like so much. And if you're not marketing on those channels, again, you're missing out. Engaging with consumers where they're already spending time is the lowest hanging fruit, in my opinion, for any marketing campaign. I don't care what you're selling. I don't care what you're promoting. I don't care what your business model is. There is a social avenue channel that people actively use that will align with what you're trying to do. As far as where social channels fit into the funnel, they absolutely can handle upper funnel, mid funnel. They shine at lower funnel activity. And that's mostly, in my opinion, a product of how much quality data each of these platforms have on the people using them. Compare how much data Facebook has to you to what a DSP may think we know about an anonymized cookie version of Joe Horine, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The discrepancy and disparity across those two different data points is vast. Even being able to track, oh, okay, it's the same user, Facebook on my phone, Facebook on my computer, Facebook on my tablet. I can link all those three things together versus 3 different cookie IDs in a DSP environment. Social platforms are really, really effective at driving that lower funnel activity and can only be more effective when balanced with, say, programmatic, PMP use, some of the other things that we're talking about. If you're not using social in some capacity, you are leaving sales dollars and marketing opportunities on the table in the holiday season. Getting creative with your creative. Don't know if you watch Westworld, fantastic show. That's the cool creative we're looking at on the right side here. Holiday season, again, we know it's going to be busy. I've said that about 1,000 times now. Doing something unique or innovative with your creative, fantastic opportunity to do that in the holiday season. Whether that is just something that's a little bit more eye-catchy, whether it is something that you want to test when you know that there's going to be an increased volume of people shopping, this is the time to get creative with your creative. Again, AUDIENCEX has people who can help you with this. Our creative team is fantastic. They bend over backwards to make sure that our clients have exactly what they need. Their patience levels are Zen-like as far as dealing with turnaround times. It's truly incredible. But Q4, don't be afraid to really go outside of your comfort zone as far as creative goes, because it will make a difference. Even if it's just people who have seen your brand throughout the year, seeing something different will be that eye-catching enough to give them a second look, click on whatever you're promoting, maybe just check out your site to make sure that it's still the same brand. There's so many good reasons to take advantage of this opportunity in the holiday season to try new creative or getting more creative. DCO, if you're an e-commerce shop, if you're an agency who's supporting an e-commerce shop and they have a variety of different products, DCO is probably going to be your best bet to drive conversion activity. At the highest level, there's 1,000 different colors and shades of DCO, but being able to serve someone an ad that is dynamic in the creative that we're using based on something we know about them, based on something maybe they've interacted with or built on the site, is unbelievably powerful at driving engagement. It just makes it feel like every ad is so personally tailored to me as the individual that it's tough for me to just ignore it. Even if it is just me saying like, oh yeah, they're the shoes that I customly designed, I should go back to Nike and check those out again. That makes such a difference for anyone, regardless of where they are at in their customer decision journey, their shopping funnel, whatever you're using. DCO can be unbelievably powerful at improving the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns. Don't forget about search. Google may be borderline monopoly, but darn it, if they are not effective at SEM, I'll throw SEO in here, but not probably what we're talking about. So let's focus on SEM. SEM is, in my opinion, one of the most abused and misused channels in marketing today. If you work with our search team, some of our estimates as far as what we think we can spend are going to come back conservatively. And that's just because depending on your space, depending on your competitor set, depending on what people are actively searching for, search doesn't always make sense. Sure, we may want to come in and protect your brand terms. Obviously, that's low-hanging fruit. You can't have your competitors outbidding you for your own bid terms. So when people look for you, they go to a competitor. Absolutely understand that. But based on a relevancy score, based on the terms that people are searching for that may be relevant to buying a product versus going to your site to pay a bill as a returning customer, that difference is where I see some of the largest discrepancies in what clients who come to AUDIENCEX say, hey, our last agency partner was saying we should be spending X, Y, Z. And it's like, I don't agree with that with every ounce of my being. So don't forget about search, but also understand where it does and does not make sense. As far as the channels that we generally look at, social is probably the king at lower funnel activity, but search is very close when it makes sense and when it's actually relevant to what your consumers are searching for. If you've got a generic brand name and you have a relatively low level of organic website traffic, awareness, consideration, all of those metrics, search can be a dangerous channel where it may look like you want to spend so much because of people searching for terms that are relevant to you, but ultimately that's not going to be what moves the needle and could what hurts the overall performance of your marketing campaigns if, say, you're overspending on a channel like search. Tailors so perfectly to look at your channel mix. Obviously, something like a marketing mix solution is really, really expensive, hard to implement, costly. Pick any negative adjective you want about why not everyone's using marketing mix, but understanding your channel mix, how does it align with your goals and objectives, what's effective, what's not working, what are you using, say, for upper and mid funnel activity versus lower funnel activity. This is maybe the most fun part about being a marketer. at least for me. Granted, I'm a data nerd. This is probably a terrible example. But understanding that perfect balance of where you're spending, what's working, what's not working. The holiday season offers us a unique time to see when the cards are on the table, when we're in kind of that, I'll say, high pressure for marketing campaigns. What does it look like? What can we learn? Is that something we want to test in Q1? Is this something we're confident only worked because it was the season? Those are all questions that you can look to address by understanding your channel mix in the holiday season. Make your promotions work. If you're offering something to your client base, don't do it just because you think you have to. Promotion should mean something or stand for something or be offered for a specific reason. Some of the best examples are inventory constraints, things that didn't sell well previously, areas of your business you're trying to grow and scale. Understand why you're offering a promotion, what you hope to gain from it, and the value it has to your target market. If you can understand all three of those things, being able to design a campaign or creative or a CTA that promotes all of those and will make for an effective promotion can be the difference between a successful campaign and a campaign that needs some tweaking. I'm going to pause and just let that sit in. If you're running a promotion, make sure you understand why and what you hope to accomplish with it, because you don't have a lot of opportunities to really engage with consumers if, say, you have promotion fatigue. So pick the ones that are important, understand who you're going after, why, what the messaging is, and make sure your promotions are working for you in the holiday season. Again, this one may shock you. Price matters. Yeah. I don't even think I need to talk through it. It matters. Understanding where you're at against you and your competitors, understanding how impactful, say, a discount is going to be, understanding your target market's disposable income and how it sits in relation to your price point are all really, really important. There's not a lot to dig into in this one, but I do think it is important to say as you think about your marketing campaign. Last but not least, just because the holiday season's over does not mean you should completely shut off your marketing spend. Again, I'm a big fan because I've seen how effective it is at using an always-on marketing budget as opposed to heading up in periods or only spending around specific dates. But even if you look at attribution windows, Facebook just reduced theirs from 28 to 7 days, I think. So that means at the low end, you should be spending a week after you think you should stop. So if you're running, and there are a few obviously exceptions to that, if you're running a Christmas promo or special, it doesn't make sense to offer that for 7 more days. But if you're just trying to increase awareness, consideration, people going to your site, making purchases, don't immediately shut off your marketing efforts just because you think, oh, the year's over. No one's going to keep engaging with us. It's just not true. Programmatically, we see 28 days, 30 days is the typical look back window, which means that you at least want to keep marketing efforts going for about a month to make sure that those people who are still mulling over a potential purchase, maybe it's folks who got a big old check for Christmas from a relative or bonus, and they've got a hole in the bottom of their wallet they're looking to spend something on. You can capitalize on that by spending after the holiday season ends. With that, that's the last slide we have. I think I saw at least one question come up. So let me figure out how to open that. All right, in the chat. Is there a metric to gauge the proper balance between encouraging holiday celebration and not being irresponsible with messaging if our product can be occasion-based? That's a great question. The first thing I'd say is there may be a data-based or analytics-based way to answer that without having a direct involvement with your messaging, your history, and all those things. I candidly do not have a good rule of that balance, and that's a tricky one. If you do figure it out, please let me know, because we can make a lot of money off of that white paper. But the big thing that I would say is keep an eye on your open rates. If it's an email campaign, keep an eye on your site traffic as far as bounce rate, how many pages people are going to. If you start to see an uptick in, say, bounce rate, and the only or the major focus of your marketing campaigns happens to be around, say, celebration, I think that might be a good indication that we might want to pull back a little bit on how much we're promoting that. Outside of that, I may need to dive deeper into whatever data you have to give you a better answer on that. So please follow up if you're curious. You guys are making it really easy on me with the lack of questions.
Joe, I have one more question.
Hit me with it.
Along the lines of your last two slides and Q4 and extending beyond December, I know we've had conversations in the past about the opportunity to turn your new Q4 shoppers into brand loyalists. Do you have any thoughts on strategies for that? Is there a strategy for that, or is that just a general conversation that should happen?
Interesting question. So if, for anyone who's listening, has seen the consumer decision journey, there's obviously the outside circle that is, hey, I've never heard of you. Okay, I've seen your website. All right, I make a purchase. Awesome, conversion. There then becomes that inner circle, which is I'm evaluating my experience. Hopefully that experience is a positive one. And then I become a brand advocate and maybe repeat purchase or continue looking to engage with your brand. As far as your question, that's a tough one. I think it ultimately depends on what your offering is. Whether it is you're driving a repeat purchase or you're just looking for a way to engage with new consumers. I think first and foremost, if you don't have a data infrastructure that allows you to know who's a new customer, who's an existing customer, you have to fix that. Secondarily, if you don't know what channel they're coming in through, I think that may be a unique opportunity to improve the data you're working with. Specifically, if say you have a channel that just seems to be crushing it off the charts for CPA or new customer acquisition, but all of those customers are just doing a free trial and bailing, that channel may not be as effective as you think it is at finding the right customer. And that concept of the right customer versus anyone who's going to engage with my brand is only possible with the right data. So ultimately, I don't think the answer is most immediately relevant to marketing. It may be more of a data or analytics question. Outside of that, I'm not sure. Good question, though.
All right, no problem. Derek has a question. Do you see that? He wants to know, are there any approaches you would recommend specifically for the Canadian market? And I have no idea.
So I don't know how closely the Canadian market follows a lot of these US holidays. Do they have a Sofa Sunday, for example? If not, we should be promoting that in Canada because Sofa Sunday is the best. But no, as far as any approaches that you would recommend specific to Canada, if there are other unique days, obviously that's the lowest hanging fruit. Understanding when you should be spiking your marketing to support when people are going to be online more or less. That's where I'd probably start. Otherwise, Canada's in a weird spot just with how crazy the United States is. I think there's potentially a chance for additional humor in marketing right now for Canada, especially if you're targeting people just in Canada or at that border between Canada and the United States. Outside of that, I don't want to speak just from the gut. I have no research to support Canada as far as their specific markets. So if you would like to follow up, I'd be happy to dig into that and come back to you with something more concrete.
All right. I don't see any other questions. If you have any, feel free to email them over to us. There is a garbage truck right outside my window right now. It's perfect timing, so I apologize if you can hear that. Our email is hello@AUDIENCEX. You can also reply to the email that we will be sending out the recording for, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. Joe, thank you so much for everything. It was insightful once again.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, everybody have a great day, and happy holiday campaign planning. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.